right, welcome to Lunch and Learn 9. I know that May is a crazy time, which explains why nobody showed up for the live version, and that's perfectly fine. It's fine. So this is coming to you recorded. Like I said, I know that May is a busy, busy time, and it can be a little crazy with our kids and our schedules and all the events that happen, which is another reason that these STEM activities and challenges might be the perfect thing for you this May. So feel free to visit our link there, that tinyurl.com/r9lunch May 5th. To find all these resources, and we hope you'll visit them. So the very first thing we're going to do, and I really want to kind of challenge you maybe to take just a minute or two to do this challenge, is a paper tower. So this is something you could use with your students as well. You give them a goal, some materials, some rules, give them some challenge questions to think through either before or after the build or both. And then you give them some time to do it. Now, this one is designed to be extremely short. It's not connected to necessarily anything else. It is just a quick challenge. So this would be a great time or use of time that you might need to fill in some space. Maybe field day gets rained out. So I hear thunder above me. Maybe you have a few extra minutes after some type of assembly or activity that you want to fill in. And so these would be some great things to have kind of in your back pocket this May to keep your students engaged and thinking. So in this case, you're going to build the tallest freestanding tower using one piece of paper with no adhesive. So scissors are optional. You can cut or tear the paper if you want. So there's the rules. You may fold, tear, or roll the paper. You cannot use any adhesives, no glue, no tape, no paper clips, nothing else. The tower must stand on its own for at least 5 seconds. And you may not tape or adhere it to something else to help it stand up. So no using your coffee cup or things like that. So typically questions we think about are, what shapes are typically strong in architecture? How could you use those shapes with a piece of paper? And then what do you think your biggest design challenge will be? And so those are some things that you would ask your students, but you can go ahead and do this. So if you want, take just a moment, pause the video, play with it, see if you can get your piece of paper into a tower that is freestanding. And when you get back, we'll talk about it. All right, so hopefully you paused the video and you took a minute to build a paper tower. Maybe you didn't, and that's okay too. But if you did build one, you would want to have some kind of processing time afterwards. Ask students and think about, did you modify your plan during the build? How did you modify it? What did you find yourself thinking about? Really asking about those metacognition skills. You might ask, if you could have had one supply, what would you choose and why? Again, really thinking and digging deep, like what would have helped you build this better? Did you need some tape? Did you need some paper clips? Would it have been nice to have something nice and strong like a popsicle stick or a skewer? And then finally think about, what skills did you have to use? And we would want our students to think about, how are they really thinking through a problem? And I think that's kind of the next piece here. Why do we do STEM activities or STEM challenges, and why are they great for the end of the year? Well, if you think about it, during that activity, you could think about, what skills did you use? You thought about some shapes that you've seen before. Maybe you thought about, I need a base or a foundation. Maybe you thought about those shapes that pre-question asks you. Maybe you decided a triangle or a square would be the sturdiest. So you folded your paper in a way that would give you that foundation or that base. Maybe it started wobbling, and so you had to redesign some things to give it some structure or some balance. Those are all some things that you might have thought of through as you were doing that activity. So thinking about why we use STEM activities and challenges then in the classroom. STEM inspires students. It increases engagement. They would have a task to complete, which for me has always been a motivating way to get students to do something. When they have a product or a task to complete that's tangible, they tend to be more engaged. Not all the time, I know. STEM activities can also develop those skills like brainstorming, designing, building, testing, problem solving, troubleshooting, and even innovating. You can turn a short activity like the paper tower into something longer by building in each of those steps. Let them brainstorm their towers. Let them collaborate with each other. Maybe even look through some examples of things that stand well, like monuments and towers and things like that in real life. It also gives them some problem-solving processes that allow them to make those natural connections. It raises the rigor of instruction. And then that last thing, the STEM fluency skills like communication and collaboration, the creativity, that critical thinking transfer. Those things all transfer to real life careers, real life problems. And that's definitely something we want in our classrooms. So just kind of continue this idea of why should we use these STEM activities in our classroom? It's hands-on engagement, it's real-world connections, it's creative problem solving, collaborative work, it's low-stakes experimentation. This is a great place for students to learn that whole idea of growth mindset. If it doesn't work, you think about it again and you try and do it another time. And so you might make an error, but that's part of the process. And then that last one, these were using simple and accessible materials. We're not trying to like have big fancy kits or anything like that. You can do it with paper or cotton balls or marshmallows or straws. You could use, to be honest, like the leftovers from projects to see what they could build from this. And so kind of moving through this, we think sometimes that STEM has to be its own big thing. And it can be. You can have STEM education that's kind of a whole system of things. And if you look at this little misconceptions document from TEA, you can see that there are a lot of these misconceptions addressed. That it doesn't have to be an equal representation of science, technology, engineering, and math. That they don't have to be a full-on project-based learning, like huge project. And they can just be these challenges where you give them a problem or a phenomena or some type of thing to think through, and then they solve it there. Yes, they're using those skills, that engineering process and design process, but it doesn't have to be a full-on project. Definitely, STEM education is not limited to high school. We don't have to limit this to CTE. This could definitely be something that happens in elementary, junior high, and high school. STEM can be done even with your littles. You can have them build something, make something to solve a problem. And I think that would be actually quite fun to watch. It doesn't have to be costly or even have its own like maker space or like that. This can be done in any classroom. And I think that's key. This is not specific to just science, technology, engineering, and math classrooms. This can be done across the curriculum. And you don't have to add time to your day to do this. It can be built in with what you're already doing. It doesn't have to be a course or a program, and it should be for everybody. And so I think that misconception piece is really handy to use with any teachers who might be reluctant to include these activities in their classroom. Now, when we're thinking about what kinds of skills and processes our students are using with STEM, we can look at things like design thinking. And TA, again, has a great STEM resource, a toolkit, and design thinking is part of that. And here they kind of partner it with that engineering design process as well. It's not an either or. You don't have to choose which one to use. They actually kind of lay on top of each other quite nicely. But this works through like how to think through these different processes, our mental processes that have to happen, how we think about the problem and define it. And we think about possible solutions, building an example and testing it out. Like I mentioned, that is such a great way to build in growth mindset because you have to think through, and if it doesn't work, what do you do next? So you can look at that. You can also look at the engineering process, which again, they go hand in hand, but it's a little more step by step, which to be honest, I prefer. Like I want to say, let's identify the problem and let everybody think through that. Let's imagine, let's brainstorm, let's plan, get our stuff together. Like, I want that step by step. I think that structure is really handy. But it's the same thing. Like I said, they kind of mesh together. But that last part, like if it didn't work, how can we make it better? And giving students time to have that reflection process is so, so important. Also really liked this integration planning graphic organizer because it showed how these kinds of activities really can be cross-curricular, where we could think about how does this fit with a language arts standard or social studies standard or something along those lines. But these kind of mindsets here, these skills, collaboration, communication, creativity and innovation, critical thinking, adaptability and resilience, and that promptness in time or resource management. Those are all such important skills that our kids are going to need. not only at school, but in the workplace, whatever they choose to do. But I like this because you can actually kind of utilize some of the things we've talked about before with AI. Upload this into something like Gemini or ChatGPT and ask it to create a lesson and tell you what standards it would meet the needs of or fit with. So as you're kind of wrapping up this year, you could do it. You could also flip that and say, I'm using this standard. What STEM challenge could I use with this? And that would be a way to kind of design some lessons and use that whole think smarter, work smarter, not harder. In fact, that's what I did with this lesson. I used Gemini and I uploaded this integration planning graphic organizer Bub, and I wanted to use it with Jack and the Beanstalk to get a challenge from it. And so you can see this is what I got back from Gemini. It gives me all the things I need. It also tells me the standards that fit with language arts, science, math, tech apps for this challenge. It tells me what materials I need, any kind of extra stuff. And then it breaks it down for read the story, talk about the language arts things, but also like you're also building in that STEM piece. Like what challenges did he face when he was trying to escape? You know, what did he use? What could he have used differently? And then the challenge itself is design something to help Jack descend safely from the giant's castle to the ground. And so it would be an alternative to the beanstalk. And I think I could see students really having a lot of fun with that, where they plan it out and develop that prototype. And you could have some kind of parameters in place to make that work. But that was just a way to kind of adapt something that you're already doing, adding in a STEM component that would get your students hands-on experience and engaged. And in fact, really, if you're teaching those tech app standards that we've talked about several times this year, remember our strands are creativity and innovation, the data literacy management and representation, computational thinking, digital citizenship, and those practical technology concepts. You can actually build STEM activities and challenges to fit with those things. In fact, TEA has done some of the work for you. And you can see these little briefs about, like, here's data literacy, here's kind of the points about it and what you can do with it. And so it gives you some like inquiry ideas or what it looks like in technology and engineering or in mathematics. So you're building in that STEM understanding from that perspective. You could also look at computational thinking and see kind of just breaks it down a little bit for you and what that might look like. Let's see where else. The digital citizenship one, in STEM, how does that fit? It's a science and engineering, and it talks about the themes of digital citizenship. And then here's that connection to STEM. How could it connect to those things? So these are our digital citizenship pieces, and these are our STEM connections. So if you're really working to get those standards, those tech app standards built in, these documents would be a great place to help as well. It just gives you some kind of ideas on how you can blend those things together. And then I wanted to leave you with just some resources and tools. And there are so many. And of course, like I said, you can have AI help build these things for you. But there are some ready-made ones ready to go. These actually came out, this playlist of videos came out in 2020 during COVID, of course. And the Connecticut Science Center made these. And they're super short, like it's almost like minute to win it games, like 1 or 2 minutes of instruction on how to build it. So there's our paper tower that we did at the beginning of this session, but you also have a whole bunch. And so these could be like ready to go through them, get the supplies you need ready to go so that anytime you have that little weird downtime because of weird schedules in May, you could pull one of these out and have a little challenge. Another one, middle school is a great place to introduce those engineering concepts. And so you can see this engineering projects for middle school. And then there's a whole bunch, there's 16 of them. Well, they said 16, but there's actually 19. So, but it also comes with some videos like what does the design process look like? And so you have kind of some resources to use there. But these would be a great kind of addition to a middle school classroom. You could do some Canva templates. Now, if you have not been in Canva, yes, it's great to build graphics and things, but if you type in STEM challenge, you can also find some ready-made ones like this one, the boat challenge, where it's kind of got like a the thought process built in, so you can brainstorm. You could add your materials in. You could have your students make a diagram. They test it, and then they have to think about how they would improve it. That's kind of one structure of it. You can also find like this one here where it's a straw tower, similar to what we just did, just a very basic idea of what it looks like. Um, you can also have there's some STEM challenge cards already made. So if you're struggling because it's May and it's Maycember, and we all know what May is like, it's the craziness of Christmas without all the presents and fun. You could just come in here and pick these that are already made and do them. And I think that would be a great use of your time. And you're still using those same skills and the same let's try that again, collaboration, that same creativity, that same hands-on, getting your students engaged in the problem solving that they need to be doing, but doing it in a way that helps you, because all you have to do is print them out and use them. This is all about using Legos. So you could just find a box of Legos and go with it. And then last, just using ChatGPT is not a bad way to do things. This was just a quick STEM challenge guide where I asked for some quick ways, and it just gives you very quickly like the instructions and the tips. Like, that's it. Like, it's super simple. Marble run on the wall, a book tower, an aluminum foil boat, code a dance, rewrite a story. And so you could just quickly see all those, but all those resources are there for you to use. So, all right. Well, because this was just straight up recorded, today is a very short lunch and learn, but I hope you can use some of this as you move into the craziness of May to engage your students in STEM activities and STEM challenges, to build some of those skills that we need to see in our students, and to enjoy these last few weeks with your kiddos.